I'm Brittany Lewis with Forbes Breaking News. Senator Elizabeth Warren grilled a Department of Defense witness at a Senate Armed Services Subcommittee hearing on Wednesday. Senator Warren spoke about contractors who have a, quote, long history of lining their pockets at taxpayer expense. The Massachusetts senator also called for the need to stop runaway spending. Take a listen here.
Thank you very much. So we're here to discuss the Pentagon's budget request for personnel costs. In other words, the part of the budget that pays for the people who make our military run. And some of those people are federal employees, but some of those people are contractors. Now, studies have shown that outsourcing can result in the Pentagon paying double or even triple what we pay for federal employees to do the same job. The Defense Business Board recommended cutting those contracts to help the department save $125 billion. Now, contractors are always going to be part of our defense workforce, but making good decisions about when to outsource requires good data. Secretary Cisneros, your office is required by federal law to help track data on the cost of contractors used by the Pentagon. So let me just start with the basics. How many contractors work for the Department of Defense?
Senator, thank you for that, but regrettably, I do not have that information with me, but I can take that for the record on the number of contractors that we have.
Is it a publicly available piece of information?
That I'm not sure of, ma'am. I would have to get back to you on
Well,
that.
let me put it this way. I can't find it.
Yeah.
And I look hard on your website. I call people. I try to figure this out. And I think that's the problem. The law explicitly requires your office to develop guidance to track this information. And I don't know how we can justify the kind of spending the Pentagon asks for if we don't even know basic things like how many people we have on contract and make that number publicly available to all of us. There's no doubt that you're required to collect it. I just like to see it and see it reported. Now, we also know that it can be incredibly expensive when the department outsources its work for services like administrative support, for food services, for deployed troops, for weapons maintenance, or even for management consulting. And the costs for these have grown enormously over the past 20 years, so that last year the department spent $214 billion on service contracting. One of the big ways that the department estimates future costs is through 5-year spending plans that lay out expectations for how much different parts of the Pentagon are going to need in various areas. So, Secretary Cisneros, how much does the department expect to spend on service contracts over the next 5 years?
Senator, it's my understanding that we don't project contractor costs the way that we do with our military and civilian workforce requirements. However, we must take, I believe you're right, a total force approach and kind of looked at contracted services. And I can commit that I'll take this concern back to the comptroller and the COPE to ensure that it's addressed.
Well, I appreciate your doing that. You know, it shouldn't take somebody asking this question. This should just be part of the planning that's already baked in. We can't have good planning if we're not looking at long-term costs. And I got to say, 5 years doesn't just seem like hugely long-term, but at least a start in the right direction. I think that taxpayers and those of us who do oversight should know how much money the Pentagon expects to spend on costly areas of the budget. And I think this committee should know that. And I'm going to be following up on requests for information. I appreciate your willingness to bring this forward. Look, we have a defense industry where these contractors have a long history of lining their pockets at taxpayer expense. And if we're not collecting the data and making smart decisions, then we're going to just continue to see runaway spending without more effectiveness in making our military work. So thank you very much.
And Secretary Cisneros, if you're able to provide that information, I think it would be interesting to stratify it between sort of ongoing long-term positions, project-oriented, special services, things that are unique to a specific project or outcome that roll over. I think that's a better way to look at it because, one, you can understand that we continue to be contracted. The other one, you can look at whether or not that's a valid basis for bringing it inside. Senator Hawley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Smith, can I start with you? Earlier this week, the VA announced that it would presume service connection for 9 respiratory cancers that were resulting from or potentially connected to burn pit exposure. This committee, as you may know, held a hearing on this topic back in March. Can you give me the DoD's estimate for the number of individuals who would qualify for the presumption of service-related connection? Do you have any sense of that?